14 hours flying time and 10,000 kilometers from my last stop, Chicago, and you couldn't find a more different retail landscape than this.
Japan is arguably the most dynamic retail scene in the world. Of all the countries that I visited in the series, Japan impresses because it continues to push boundaries, and it's also a place where the customer is still king, a concept which runs counter to retail culture in most other places in the world.
Japan is, without question, the world's most fashion-conscious, design-obsessed, and actively consumerist nation. The shopping experience has been refined to such a level that everything from packaging to window displays are that little bit better than New York, Hong Kong, or London. At the luxury end, the biggest point of difference are the stores themselves. In Japan, you don't just build a flagship, you get the likes of Herzog and Dumeron to build a temple to Prada, or Renzo Piano to erect a shrine to Hermes.
The shopping experience in Tokyo is a holistic experience. It's kind of a bombardment of the senses. You know, it's almost like walking into a gigantic art gallery sometimes. That shopping experience in a certain area, the whole area looks like a huge, moving, living, breathing art gallery. And it's, you know what? And I can't find that anywhere, at least not at the moment.
What sets Japan apart? Where do I start? From the perfectly appointed sales staff who make you feel like a slob no matter how impeccably turned out you are, to the unapologetic obsession with getting your personal style just right, Japan can satisfy any consumer desires.
Japan's been a regular destination for me for a good 15 years now, and despite a decade of newspapers filled with stories about economic gloom and poor consumer confidence, you'd never notice it here in Ginza on a Sunday morning when they close the street down and Japanese come out in their finery, even kimonos, to engage in their favorite sport, which is shopping for luxury goods.
The Japanese spend more on luxury goods than anyone else in the world. Shoppers here account for an estimated 41% of global luxury sales, and premium European labels invest hundreds of millions of dollars to secure prime real estate in Tokyo's most exclusive fashion districts. Chanel reportedly spent $240 million on their new flagship store in Ginza. A heavy investment in a single market perhaps, but the returns are bigger than all of Europe put together. The passion you see here for all things Western, and particularly European, is unlike anywhere else. To understand this, you have to cast back in time to the Edo period when Japan closed its doors to the outside world. For 200 years, Japan lived in total isolation. It was only in the middle of the 19th century that the Japanese were allowed contact with the West. This led to an insatiable hunger for all things not Japanese.
From Italy, painters and sculptors were invited to reveal the secrets of European art. The Imperial Court Orchestra began to play on Western instruments, and society ladies took lessons in ballroom dancing. The material culture of the West was adopted with enthusiasm. Japanese men exchanged their kimonos for Western-style suits and hats, carried rolled umbrellas, grew their hair, and learned to eat meat. In the 1870s, the watchword was wakon yosei, Japanese spirit with Western technology, a phrase which well describes the nature of Japan even today.
Constructing an identity through a collection of the right labels is a huge part of what it is to be Japanese. And for many, to brand yourself with the best of Europe is the ultimate sign of success. Research suggests that 40% of women between 15 and 59 own something by Louis Vuitton. Others reckon it's more like 90%.
In a country where exclusivity and having it first is everything, it's not surprising that one of the luxury goods players has found a new way to both secure customer loyalty and also build their brand. This key, for about $2,000 US, will buy you a ticket to handbag heaven.
Welcome to the world of Sellex, an exclusive enclave tucked away on the top floor of the Louis Vuitton store on Omotesando. The idea of Sellex is to make the customer feel even more valued than on the shop floor. In Japan, this is saying a lot. The lofty lounge environment harks back to a time when exclusive meant exclusive. This penthouse retail concept is the only one of its kind in the world, created for the Japanese uber-luxury shopper. For the layperson who hasn't been to Japan, who hasn't experienced the retail culture in this country, why is there this culture of obsession? And how has it evolved that the Japanese consumer is so interested in provenance, the whole story? I think much more than someone would be in France or America, for example.
I think that a large part of it is that the Japanese living conditions are so bad. Everyone lives in these very tiny, cramped quarters, or they live in very out-of-the-way places where they're just repressed by family, tradition, community, etc. And so they need some kind of an escape hatch, and consumer culture has always provided that. People who can't afford a good apartment will be able to afford a shirt from Calvin Klein. And the reason why people are so obsessed with brands and the story behind brands is because they need some kind of drama in their lives that living conditions can't offer.
When we talk about consumers' habits, can you slice up the pie for us and potentially tell us how much they're deploying to things that go on their back and on their feet and over their shoulders?
I think that a girl, if she's not paying rent, living with her parents, and a lot of people are like that, they're called parasite singles here, she can spend up to 70% on just putting things on herself. People will skip lunch in order to buy a Chanel bag.
Seriously?
Seriously. Girls, I know girls who will only spend 500 yen on meals a day. That way they can keep themselves
2
skinny.
pounds.
Right. Yes, and then, they literally starve themselves so they can look nice.
And I guess there's also stories on the other side too about young girls who are in light prostitution, if there is such a thing as well, to feed their habit.
Yes, that's right. We always joke and say that this country is on the brink, but not really going over to drugs. It's because we have our own drugs, and that's consumerism.
The lengths to which shoppers will go here can be quite surreal. To get a sense of shopping as extreme sport, I met up with photojournalist Kyoichi Suzuki, who searches out individuals who dedicate their whole lives to collecting one specific designer label. To date, he has found 75 such fashion addicts. Tell me about this project and why you decided to go after these individuals, and who would you call these people? Do you have a name for them?
I put the name called happy victims because they are victims, of course, you can see, but they're happy too, because I have been taking photographs of small apartments of young Japanese kids, and I found a lot of them are victims of something.
Yeah, tell me about somebody.
Let's see.
Hermes?
Okay, so this is Hermes guy, and he lives in very small apartment in Tokyo. For fourth floor, no elevator, and it's really old. No bath. I mean, there's a toilet, but no bath. And he's a big collector of Hermes.
This is extraordinary.
Yeah, this is Anasui collector, and this is a small one-room studio apartment filled with Anasui, and she lives with her boyfriend. Of course, boyfriend hates that, but...
Is he collecting his own thing or no? He's not
No, there's no more room left. So he has to respect his girlfriend's hobby. But some of the people say that they like design. But lots of them say they become friends with salesperson and they feel that salesperson understands them. So if that salesperson moves to different shops, they move too. And so it's like a personal guru or something like that.
Obsession lies at the core of much of the Japanese retail experience. Whether it's the computer geeks and manga fanatics that hang out in Tokyo's Electronic City, or the girly posers who turn themselves into fictional characters, Japanese pop and retail culture is high-voltage extremism. To millions of Japanese, shopping is more like a science than an art. Fashion magazines here offer scientific how-to catalog-style editorials that are meticulously studied so consumers can nail a look. Nowhere is this more in evidence than at the 109 shopping center in Shibuya. This is shopping nirvana for the young generation of fashion addicts who've been known to spend up to 90% of their income on clothes and accessories.
For a paternalistic society like Japan, it is quite amazing to see the females leading the way when it comes to dictating styles. You can take a look at all the retailers. They're definitely catering to the women, to teenage girls, because they, as an economic segment of the population, is so powerful that no one can ignore them. So even in music, you can see female artists actually are being the style icons as opposed to the male artists. If you want to spot trends, really, hang out at the corner of Harajuku and Omotesando. Everybody hangs out there. And the good thing about those trends coming up is that they're not manufactured. And you see it, fashion magazine editors and stuff, they really like to feature the young people who are just natural. And they just look good and look really, really stylish. And then the stars obviously are very much aware of young people's culture, and then they adopt one style and they take it up. And then it becomes really popular because just somehow it's so accessible.
To solve the consumer consumption equation, ad agencies in Japan have to be almost embedded in the culture on the street. In this challenging market, creative agency Beacon Communications designed their physical space and the structure of the agency to address the complexities of the Japanese shopper.
Part of the things which I think you'll see throughout the office was a real attempt to look at space differently. And what that meant was to create space as a tool for ideation. That may sound a bit funny, but again, with the complexities of this market, with these daunting challenges of really understanding it, we try to create tools, which is the actual space. It's how you sit, it's how you feel, it's how you confront the person in front of you. It's a whole host of different stimulus around you that hopefully gets your brain working in different ways. And it's just, one may think of it almost as a silly thing, but for example, this meeting space, I mean, we affectionately call it the skateboard ramp, but you know, it's just an open space. It's in the middle of the floor. Again, it's about transparency. It's about idea generation. It's about understanding people. The unfortunate nature of this country, and I don't think it's anything, it's actually quite shameful. They have the highest incidence of what's called karoshi, which means death from overwork. And it is because those stress levels are so high, not only in the advertising industry, but overall. And it is a culture based more on effort than results. In the West, it's all results-based. Here, it's all effort-based. You know, you work all night, you work day and night, you know, 3 months in a row until you drop. We try and restrict the working hours. We're very tough. We have a 10 o'clock policy that you can't work past 10 o'clock at night. Because ultimately, in this idea, in this place, you need to be in the streets. The ideas aren't in the office. If you really want to understand people, you need to be with people. You're no different than them, but you are one, and therefore, this is not the best place to grab the insights and the thoughts. This is a space that we're always using, and again, instead of a traditional meeting room, this is a place where the teams will work, experimenting with the different cosmetics. So I think here we've got, I guess it's SK2 team, and they're looking at probably different foundations or different cosmetics and testing and such. Again, it's a bit, I don't want to say a lab, but it's an environment that is friendly. It's an environment that allows you to process the information and the data differently.
Little surprise that Lopez is also taking the lifestyle of the consumer from the street and bringing it into the office, creating whole floors dedicated to different sectors, like women or families.
On this floor, we have all the people that are working on products that are marketed to families. And it's everything from children to the mums to the grandparents and all the diversities that come with that. So again, we've tried to create a very unique space and space as tools for that. In fact, you can smell that. They're actually probably using the kitchen right now to test certain products that we market. You normally think of an art director, you know, working, or a planner working, you know, on pen and paper, or on the computer, or reading data. But here they're actually working, you know, I mean, she's an account director and she's washing dishes. And that's what she does. And, you know, the creative person as well is sitting here stirring onions. Does it affect their layout and how they interpret that? Absolutely. Absolutely it does. I believe so.
The Japanese veer close to being annoying with the depth they'll go to research and understand a brand, have a new garment first, or comb the streets to ensure that they've got the exclusive from an obscure shop on a side street in Antwerp or Berlin.
It's about being accepted. It's about being in the group. It's about, of course, being in trend in fashion. It's a way of an expression because Japanese schooling is very, very intense, and it's just a way to express themselves, be a part of a community, and they kind of, you know, there are different levels of that as well within that culture. So we can, from like really wacky crazy to more conservative. So it's a whole range, whole spectrum of different types of style involved.
Young Japanese have also started to identify with and embrace their cultural roots by taking the kimono and giving it a whole new spin. No longer just ceremonial dress, but also suitable attire for a shopping tour through Aoyama.
I think it's because the outside world, the international community, has alerted us to the fact that, hey, we can be seen as a little bit cool. I think this is the first time that such a phenomenon has ever occurred to us. You know, the image we had of ourselves was just uncool and tacky and poor and yuck, oriental. But now, it seems that we've suddenly gained this cool status, and the Japanese geek, once shunned as a social outcast and a complete weirdo with no salvation in sight, is now desirable. How about that? So everything we've been taught to hate is now likable, at least for us, and that has changed our whole self-image, and I think that's what's changing the whole fashion scene. I think that in another year or two, you're going to see a new wave in Japanese consumerism. I mean, in terms of fashion, people are not going to go for luxury brand items so much as combining things and blending things and trying to make their own stories. If you're going to say that's what fashion should have been in the first place, then I think the Japanese are going to come full circle and start from there.
People all over the world talk of retail therapy, but in Japan, shopping is about so much more than a quick fix, particularly in the traditional department stores which seem untouched by time. Here, the slow art of buying, selling, and respect for the customer is an institution that seems resistant to change. I'm always amazed at how much attention Harrods Food Hall gets because here in Japan, the presentation and product packaging nears perfection and sets a standard that puts most European department stores to shame. This scene plays itself out in probably 30 different department stores in Tokyo alone, 7 days a week.
This is the best part about shopping in Japan, is the actual wrapping of the gift, because I don't think there's any place anywhere on the planet that actually wraps quite the way the Japanese do.
Gift giving has been in the DNA of Japanese society for centuries, and so much of the consumer experience here is touched by the ceremonial aspect of shopping. It's interesting that a society that places ritual and tradition at its heart has also produced a culture where consumers are challenging the retailer. This is a place where service and dedication to the customer are in a league of their own.
Tell me about the United Arrow's approach to service. The relationship between you, the retailer, and your customer.
From the beginning, our motto is always shop is stand for customer. And originally, we learned this from the Western system, like a Nordstrom in the United States, or maybe in Jermyn Street or Savile Row in London. So related to this subject, sometimes our president or vice president or executives goes to the customer's house to
Only in Tokyo, or?
Everywhere. So sometimes goes to Sapporo, goes to Kyushu to apologize. We have strong wish to keep this stronger relationship with customer to our company through the salesperson. So shop is stand for customer. This motto is a most important part and maybe the secret of our success.
United Arrows is one of Japan's most innovative and successful fashion retailers. Until recently, their customers have gone almost exclusively for Western designer labels. But now, as a new generation of Japanese are embracing their cultural roots, UA have introduced bespoke kimonos and traditional accessories.
It's interesting because to be more modern is to be more modest, especially for the kimono. So we asked them the brown and navy. So most of those production are made in brown and navy. Because brown and navy is more Western color, but if they're choosing more Japanese color, sometimes it's too strong.
To buy the entire kit, bag, shoes, what does a full men's kimono cost?
It depends on the fabric. So if you're choosing the expensive fabric, it becomes more expensive, but maybe
Average price.
average price is like 20万円. 20万円 is 1,000 pounds.
1,000 pounds.
The Japanese culture, Japanese tradition, Japanese kind of aesthetic is becoming very fresh to the especially for the younger people. So now a kind of Japanese booming is happening in the younger generation, and at the same time, it makes them proud of their country and their background. But it's just the beginning.
It's not just in fashion that retail is sharpening its image. Despite the social and economic reality of late home dwellers in miniature living spaces, interior design and lifestyle products are now competing for a bigger share of the pocketbook. The consumer's point of view is essential to any new shopping venture, and it's that high level of expectation that has helped create some of the most innovative retail concepts in the world. The architect come illusionist responsible for Tokyo's most original shop interiors is Masamichi Katayama.
What is the Wonderwall treatment, and what does Katayama bring to a project?
そうですね。僕はやっぱりこうショッピングって楽しい、すごいハッピーな時間だと思うんですね。だから僕の哲学っていうほどのことじゃないかもしれないけど、やっぱり全て関わる人たち、そのお客さんも含めて、お店の人も含めて、みんなハッピーにならないといけない。ということはやはりそのビジネスにちゃんとなっていくというその仕組みができることだと思うんですね。そういうことかな、一番大事な。
How much does popular culture influence your work when you get to the final design?
Yes. 僕にとって多分そのポップカルチャーってのはすごく重要で、もしかしたらそのデザインとかっていうよりもその音楽だったりその映画ですよね。そういうもの、おっしゃられたようにすごく影響を受けるんですよ。でそれはなんでかっていうとその空間というよりはその空気感全体を支配するムードっていうのが僕は 作りたいものだと思うんですね。で例えば音楽が流れてきた瞬間に空間が変わったりします。それから映画に対しての影響っていうのは、映画っていうのは実際できないものが、例えばハウスが浮いていたりとか、そういうことに対してすごく面白いなと思うんですね。でそういうものを僕はリアルなもので表現していきたいというふうに思ってます。
Are there special traits or qualities about the Japanese shopper that make them different from people elsewhere in the world?
Yes. 多分日本人っていうのは多分ですけどショッピングがすごく楽しい時間なんですね。でそのヨーロッパの方とかは例えば旅行にかけたりとかそういうこともあるんですけど、それよりもっと高い位置にショッピングっていうなんていうのかな、一つの旅行に出かけるぐらいの感覚っていうのがあって、多分自分の収入のバランスをすごく悪く全部使っちゃう人もいるし、でそれぐらいなんか物に対しての憧れだったりとか、物がもたらす自分を変えていくってことに対してなんか信じているというか、僕自身もそうなんですけどね。
Japan may have come relatively late to modern consumer culture, but it's now a must-visit, must-watch for retailers everywhere.
There's no question in my mind that the Japanese consumer is the most demanding consumer in the world, without question, and has the highest level of sophistication, is actually probably one of the most educated in the world as well. And so I think it has just spiraled to this point of absolute competition to survive and to be seen and to be aspirational in a way. So the stakes are very, very high here. And the commitment level to play here is daunting. But the rewards are also tremendous.
Having started the series in Russia, a country which is enjoying its first love affair with high-end retail, and witnessed a retail crisis in America, it's only fitting that we end up here in Japan, where all the good things converge and little of the bad has managed to penetrate. The big brand can coexist beside the ancient family business, service is still the star, and no matter how powerful a retailer may be, one size does not fit all. If other countries are feeling consumers have lost interest in shopping, they have. The customer doesn't only want to be right, they also want to be challenged.